What's up? And welcome to the Think Like a White Man podcast. I am Kai, and I am so happy that you're here today. What's up? And truly, thank you so much for listening to the Think Like a White Man podcast. I am sitting in my Brooklyn apartment looking out at New York City covered in the most fluffiest snow ever. I have my coffee, I have my blanket, and I am just feeling so thankful and so grateful for all of the love that I received from my first episode ever. My heart and my soul feels like it's literally going to pop out of my chest. Like every single DM, Instagram post, conversation started, every single one of you sharing it with your friends and your families, and the comments on my podcast make me feel so emotional. So thank you, thank you, thank you. There are literally not enough thank yous that I can give you all. And if you didn't like the podcast, first off, fuck you, your mom's a hoe, and fuck the haters. But literally, with all jokes aside, today's episode, we are going to be talking about some deep shit. Last episode, we talked about how we need to change our mindsets to start thinking like white men so we can actually succeed in a system that is built against us. And remember, it is thinking like white men, not being like white men. And today we are going to be talking about getting out of playing of the game of survival and instead playing the game of thriving. But before we dive in, it is my birthday month. Not only is it February, Black History Month, but your girl's turning 29. What the fuck? How did we even get here, truly? And to celebrate, I am packing 4 suitcases and hopping on a flight to the Italian mountains to do literally nothing. Going to the Dolomites has been on my vision board for so long, and I am so excited to finally be able to go. And I cannot wait to share pics because the pics about to be fire. But now, since it's my birthday month, I was actually talking to my dad about my birth story, and I don't have all of the details here, but I like to say, knowing myself, that I came in with a very dramatic effect. My mom was screaming, the doctor's panicking, and 20 people are waiting in the room for the most perfect baby ever to take her first breath. And then bang! I popped out my mom's pussy into the hands of, can you guess what I'm about to say? A white man. Now, that story was definitely changed for dramatic effect because I was a C-section baby, hence the perfect head. But it was true that my doctor was a white man. And that set the stage for what my entire upbringing was like, living in a world of all white people. I grew up in Idaho where I was the only Black person in every room, whether that's a classroom, the grocery store, the movie theater, you name it. 99.99% of the time, I was the only Black person there. While I was surrounded by white people all the time, what I didn't actually realize is that we approach life so differently. Black people are born into a game of survival, while white people are born into a game of thriving. Oftentimes, Black people think, man, I have to get this right, because if I don't, there's going to be some very serious consequences. And white people think, man, if I really mess up this opportunity, that's okay. I'm going to go ahead and go find a new one. There have been so many ways that I have just seen this underlined and bold, and the explicit difference of how Black people live and how white people live. I feel like the best way to actually demonstrate this is by using an example of a real life white man that I met in corporate. And of course, instead of using his name, we are going to call him Chad. Chad is a good dude. He's white. Obviously, he has really good hair. He has like really nice, always iron t-shirts and like the coolest, crispest jeans that you've ever seen. And let me tell you, when Chad was born into this world, he knew he was already going to win. His dad was not worried about him running into the wrong crowds or getting shot by the police, or whether he was even going to have a successful job at the end of the day. He popped out of his mom's pussy, and his dad held him up and said, "Harvard son, that is where you are going to go." From day one, Chad got that. And he was then put into the right after school programs. You know, he was probably doing some lacrosse type shit. He was going to the prep classes for all the Ivy League schools. He spent his summers on islands that I can't even pronounce. And honestly, probably islands that I don't even know exist on a map. And this has been happening for generations in Chad's family. He has had generations of people attending the exact same college that Chad is going to. His dad took over his dad's business, and they have been building wealth. They have been building deep networks of people that will look out for them. And they have been creating every single advantage so that the next generation can build off of the progress and realistically power that they have created. And of course, Chad is the type of person that you probably would hear some shit from, like, oh, you're just here because of D&I and affirmative action. You are so lucky to have these programs. Disgusting. How many people have we ran into that have said some shit like, and so when I met Chad, I was in my first corporate job, like I said. Chad was in the office with the managers at lunch. He was laughing with them. He was networking with them. And he was truly believing that he deserved all of these opportunities. Chad's mindset at this company was, this company is lucky to have him. Chad thinks long-term about his future. He's playing his life like a chess game, and he's always 5 plays ahead. He can afford to take risks because if anything happens, his family's got him and he can just go find another job. But instead, the risks that he's taking are actually working out for him, and he's getting amazing opportunities and he's being rewarded time and time and time again. And Chad is able to look left and right and up and down and see people who look just like him in powerful positions literally all over the world, because mind you, he's taking trips on those islands. And so this allows him to think that he can literally do anything that his mind comes up with. Chad's life is fun, he's able to dream big, he's making so much money, and he's moving up the organization. This is the white man mindset. Now tell me if this story sounds more familiar to you. Just feeling so grateful for having such a great job at such a great company, and too nervous to take risks because of being afraid of getting fired, right? And seeing Black coworkers coming into these companies and leaving just as fast as if it's a literal revolving door, and needing to work twice as hard to prove value. And working so hard that there's actually no time to network, but not so hard to see that no one higher in the company has a darker skin complexion or curly hair, right? Just making sure that the bills are paid, that food's on the table, and that weekends can be pretty comfortable. And at home, laying down in bed, scared of the size of the long-term dreams because could they actually come true? That is survival mode. When I thought of survival mode at first, I literally thought of life or death situations. Like, am I going to make it through the day alive? Will I be able to have food on my table? Will I be able to have shelter the next few days? And that is like actually the reality of some people. I have had several friends who have lived and continue to live in these situations, and it is absolutely heartbreaking. And not to discredit them or those situations, but that is literally just one type of survival mode. Survival mode is an overarching mindset of desperation. It's short-term thinking out of fear and anxiety driven decision-making. And it is not defined by how much or how little money you are currently making. Survival mode is not something that we are taught explicitly. It is ingrained through lived experiences, and it is reinforced through generational caution. It is subtly or overtly shaped by systemic realities. And it shows up in the Black psyche, whether you are coming from poverty or a middle-class suburbia life, or even if you are yacht rich. And it took me until I was 26 and I moved from Seattle to New York City for me to realize that I was living in survival mode. When I moved to New York City, I hosted a Women of Color empowerment event, and it was such an amazing event. And at the end of it, everybody was coming up to me, congratulating me and thanking me for hosting the event. And one particular woman came up to me and said, Kai, how did you get out of survival mode? That question rocked me. I had been living in survival mode for so long that I thought it was just life. I didn't even know survival mode existed. I told you this already, but when I graduated college and I started working, I was working day in, day out, first in the office, and I was the last out of the office. I would leave work, I would be in almost autopilot mode. You know when you're like driving sometimes and you have no idea that it's been like 30 minutes and you're like, wait, who drove this car? That was literally my existence in life. I would come home and I was just not present. I got to the point that I was like smoking weed or doing an edible every single day, and that is not like me. But it got to the point that I was like, the only way that I could relax is if I was high. And the only way that I feel like I could actually laugh is if I was laying in bed with all of my munchie snacks, just gorging on cookies. On Sunday nights, I would get the worst Sunday scaries ever. I would lay in bed, I would set my alarm, and I would immediately go into just an anxiety attack. I would cry and talk to Garrett and say, like, I don't know what I'm doing at this job. I'm having such a hard time. I was nervous that I was going to get fired every single day. And any mistake that I made, I just felt like it was the absolute end of the world. And my success at work became a direct representation of who I was. That if I didn't send out enough emails, that I was a failure. If I didn't close a deal, that I was a failure. I had no control over my emotions. to the point that I had to literally dissociate in order to live. Because if I was living so closely with my emotions, then I was overwhelmed. That is what survival mode also looks like. Literally removing yourself from your own existence because you can't operate because of how hard it feels. And the thing that was like super, super hard for me is I felt like if you look around, I had everything. I'm living on the 26th floor in a luxury high-rise apartment. I have the view of literally every single iconic building in New York City. I can see the Statue of Liberty. I can see the Brooklyn Bridge. I can see the Empire State Building. I have the most incredible boyfriend of my entire life. I have my literal dream dog. Why am I still sad? I'm walking outside into the streets and I see literal homeless people who haven't showered, who haven't ate, that are asking for $1. How could I feel so shitty? I had all the outward symbols of success, and I could not understand why I felt so shitty. And it's even harder when I feel like I have my cousins who are like, Kai, you have it all. You're exactly where I want to be. Or my friends saying, hey, are you actually really struggling? Because look, Kai, your life is absolutely incredible. You were just on vacation here and there. And I can't blame them. I'm asking myself the same questions. I'm wondering the same things. Survival mode might be somebody who's escaping a horrible situation at home. And survival mode is homelessness, but the reality is this is also survival mode. Growing up, I had a really good childhood. My parents wanted me to thrive. All of our parents want that for us, right? They all have good intention. My parents' version of thriving was safety and making sure that I had a solid foundation. Not necessarily playing the game 5 steps ahead like Chad. My parents weren't worried about me going to jail as far as I know, really. But they did make sure that I found good friends, like the friends that are going to make sure that I stay out of trouble. My parents did make sure that I was in the house by a certain time, curfew, so that I didn't have any trouble with the police. And when I did slip up, I would get punished out of safety and protection. I was told I should go to college to check the box for what success looks like in America and make sure that I had the bare minimum for that. And they made sure that I could go to a good college for a good cost for my undergrad. We weren't necessarily talking about go to this college so that I was running in circles with people who had multi-million-dollar net worths. No legacy-based enrollment for me, Chad. The lessons were so different. They were not about networking upward or climbing the corporate ladder. The focus was on staying safe, aka surviving, and it took me 2 years of therapy to unlearn all of the fear-based decision-making that I was doing that was ruling my life and I didn't even know about it. And this is what I learned. You need to get out of survival mode if you want any chance of achieving your dreams. Because if you live every day of your life like you're about to fail, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your body stays on high alert, your decisions come from fear instead of strategy, and fear-based decisions will always keep you small. You have to break that cycle. So we're going to be spending the next few minutes talking about 3 tactical ways that you can break out of survival mode and start thriving. When I learned about survival mode, I also learned that there are different types of survival mode. There's mental, there's physical, there's spiritual, and there's emotional as well. So what we need to do is figure out what's keeping us in survival mode and make a plan to escape it. For me, it was money. I feel like money was just shackles on both of my wrists and was like a ball and chain that I was just like dragging with me anywhere. Any time that I swiped my card, even if it was for a $1 water bottle in Central Park, I had so much anxiety. Anytime that I opened up my bank account, I felt like my chest was going to pop out of my chest, and I felt like I couldn't have fun doing anything because of how much anxiety it felt to swipe my credit card. I was so constantly anxious and stressed about my finances, which means I was in survival mode. I was thinking so short term about spending that $1 that there was no way that I could be thinking long term about how I could take that money and invest it into a long-term strategy. I don't even know how I got myself in this situation, if I'm being completely honest. I think that I got my first big girl job and I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend money on all the things that I always wanted to spend money on that my parents told me no about. I remember distinctly, I was like, I'm going to go to every single concert that I want to go to. I had just learned about Nordstrom. Coming from Idaho, there was like the smallest mall ever. And Nordstrom opened my eyes to fashion. And I was like, finally, I can build the wardrobe of my dreams. I don't have to go to Fashion Runway, which is like the secondhand store in Idaho Falls. I'm buying every single bag. There was this one time that I walked into Nordstrom. There was a bag that legitimately called my name. I walked in and I put my credit card down. $2,500 later, it was mine. That year, my passport was tatted looking like an arm sleeve, period. Did you catch the Drake reference? I'm sorry, I'm a huge Drake stan. I went to Costa Rica. I think I went to Canada 2 times. I went to Switzerland. I went to Edinburgh. I went to London. I went to Paris. I went to Mexico. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to Mexico, I'm going to be buying the best room possible. And I would get the swim up with the ocean views. Oh my God, this is disgusting. I went so many places. I also had gotten into a little bit of a mix up with the IRS. Crypto had just gotten big and I didn't know how to report this on my taxes. Checking the mail one day, I open up my mailbox and I see this check from the IRS. I opened it up. My heart literally stopped. I owed the IRS over $50,000. So I had over $40,000 in credit card debt. I had this IRS bill of $50,000. I still had a car payment. My financial anxiety was literally taking over my life and I could not take it anymore. And in 2024, I said that my number one goal was to be financially disciplined. That meant absolutely no lavish vacations. I was on the strictest budget. Every single dollar I had to ask myself, is this something that I need? There was no more fancy date nights. It was date nights in and like, how can Garrett and I have fun for free together? And I am so proud to say that in an entire year of being disciplined, I was able to completely pay off all of my credit card debt. I was able to get all of my IRS tax shit figured out and cleaned up. And I was even able to pay off my entire car payment. And you know what? It was so worth it. I feel literally free. I am completely out of survival mode when it comes to my finances. I'm no longer desperate for money. I'm not finding any way that I can make a buck. I have a comfortable savings account. So if anything happens, I'm not going to be put into a state of emergency. And I have better financial habits. All huge wins. So what is one thing that you know is keeping you in survival mode? And what's one thing, whether that's a big thing or a small thing, that you can start fixing it and getting out of survival? Second tip, you are a business and you need to start acting like it. In quoting the GOAT of New York City, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. So it probably sounds so cringe, ew. That's how we got to be moving. White men are putting themselves first. It may look like they are looking out in the best interest of the company or their manager, but they are literally thinking about themselves. They know how their short-term moves like networking are going to lead them to their long-term goals, such as being the CEO of the entire company. So do not be lulled into thinking that you should not be looking out for yourself, because you absolutely should. Black people will never get rich in corporate, and Black people will never be safe in corporate. And if the layoffs have not woken you up yet, we are literally just numbers. It's not even personal. It's literally just a business decision. If we are taking money and not making money, or the company is losing money, then they have to cut people. And we can literally be gone within minutes. And they don't give a fuck that the job market is hard. And with D&I programs being cut out, that just creates an even worse environment for us. We need to be making a plan to make the next Black-owned business so that we can be protecting ourselves and creating true wealth. When I was in corporate the first time around, I was just working. I was just working to get a paycheck and to go on vacation and pay for a nice apartment. I was just blowing my time and blowing money. And it wasn't until I stopped and asked myself, like, Kai, what are you actually doing? And what are you actually working toward? And that's when I started acting like an actual business owner and investing back into myself. Every single thing that we do in our job should be an investment in our next business idea. Who can we work with that will grow our net worth? What skills can we be building that will propel us towards our long-term goals? Our 9-to-5 needs to invest in us. And then the third way that we can break out of survival mode is finding a Black mentor that aligns with our long-term goals. We cannot be what we can't see. And with the pullback of D&I programs, we are going to see even less Black people taking up spaces in these places. And we need to be intentional about the environments that we put ourselves in and who we let into our lives. That includes the media that we consume, the people we spend our time with. Step 1 is getting the fuck rid of toxic people. Bye, peace out, gone, today. And step 2 is intentionally consuming media with positive Black voices. And step 3 is finding Black mentors who can not only teach us and guide us, but also be reflections of the great excellence that we are. I will spend an entire episode of how to find a mentor and, even more importantly, be a good mentee. Because if we are investing in ourselves and we think of it as money, and time in this case is money, we want to make sure that we use people's money, aka time, well, and that we are investing that appropriately to actually see ourselves grow. So being a good mentee is just as important as finding a good mentor. So yeah, we are businesses, and we are going to be the businesses that we are investing in for Black History Month, baby. And it starts with changing our mindsets and getting the fuck out of survival mode. We need to start looking out in the best interest of ourselves and taking risks that have great rewards for us long term and change the trajectory of our lives, but also for generations. We are not going to let this current climate break us down and dim our light. We are going to be standing here seeing ourselves as Black excellence. So please join me every Tuesday as we deconstruct the lies that we live by, find completely new ways to change our mindset, and hear from some really incredible Black people on their experiences of navigating success. Thank you so much for being here. Truly, it means so much for me, and I will talk to you next week. Thank you for listening to the Think Like a White Man podcast. You can catch a new episode every Tuesday. And if you don't want to miss any of the action, please follow. I want to be able to hear from you, so please leave a review, leave a star rating. I want to know your thoughts. And if you want behind the scenes on seeing a Black corporate woman baddie struggling and trying to find balance, please follow me on It's Kai Denise on Instagram and TikTok.